Hey everyone, welcome back to Unboxing the Underground. I am so thrilled to welcome to the channel Sensory Stowers, who is the host of Europe's #1 extreme cinema podcast, Too Extreme for Mainstream, in which she delves into the darkest depths of horror, suspense, and all things adrenaline-pushing films with discussions, reviews, and interviews with industry professionals of the genre's most controversial works. She is a bona fide extreme cinema expert, a self-professed gorehound, and film critic. Sensory, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the channel tonight.
No problem at all. My pleasure.
So for the uninitiated, what is too extreme for mainstream? And what prompted you to create the podcast?
Oh, okay, so I guess I'll start by how I started the actual podcast first and then go into it that way. So many years ago, when I was a teenager, I come across a movie called Flowers, and I actually watched that at my biological dad's house. And I just got into the movie of like how deep and dark it was, and I just got really intrigued by that kind of movie style. And then I progressed on to more extreme cinema. And I remember going into HMV in the UK and seeing a Sallow. And I thought, I'm sure I've seen that mentioned somewhere. And then I watched that one. And then I just started collecting them from then on. And it's just a big love of mine that I love these movies and the craftsmanship that goes into these movies. And the directors especially when you work on a certain budget and stuff, and it really piqued my interest to get in the minds of these directors and stuff. And so I thought, not many people actually talk about these movies on a grand scheme of things. So I thought maybe I could do something like this, for the people that want to hear other people's opinions on these movies, to go into more detail and more depth and everything like that. And so that's what I did. And I got in touch with Stephen Byro and I asked him if I could use the name Too Extreme for Mainstream, and he allowed me to use that. And so, and also with the love of these movies comes with the love of the directors and the actors, the special effects artists, of how much dedication they actually put into these movies is unreal, basically. And that's why I love these movies so much, and that's why I wanted to talk about them as well, because there wasn't many creators out there talking about these movies. And I just thought I'd fill that gap a little bit, and I really do feel like I have, but I feel like I could be doing better, if that makes sense. So that's how I got into it. But the Too Extreme for Mainstream, these types of movies was most certainly not for everyone, but I do believe that if people give them the time of day to actually watch these movies and look between the lines with these movies, they'll actually grow an interest into these movies, because like yourself, you'll know that there is a lot of extreme cinema out there that's not as gory or graphic and stuff like this. There is an actual storyline behind a lot of them. But that's why I started the podcast, and I'm still actually in the process of doing an interview with somebody else at the minute. So I'm looking forward to that. So yeah.
That's awesome. On like, I mean, you definitely touched upon it, but like on a primal kind of like consumer level as a moviegoer, just as a movie fan, what is it about extreme cinema that like draws you to it? Like with like as far as cinematic elements are concerned, like what do these films tackle that you can't find in the mainstream?
Oh, that is a really tough question,
It's
actually.
a broad one for sure.
Yeah, it's an umbrella of different feelings I get with watching these movies. Um, I think to me personally, I do love obviously horror movies, gory movies and stuff like this. I'm just a gore hound, that's for sure. But I just love like the attention to detail that these people put into them. And also, I think the reason being is because they do a lot of stuff in these movies that not a lot of mainstream horror movie directors would venture into doing. So I think they push the boundaries a little bit of modern cinema, if that makes sense. So I do like it for that. Um, but I'm just drawn to it. Like I'm drawn to a lot of movies like that. As you know, you've heard my podcast and everything. I just I think it's really hard to explain why I actually really thoroughly enjoy these movies, apart from just saying like what I said, and also the effort that these directors put into these movies and stuff like that, and they are truly dedicated to the fans as well. So I think that's a little bit of an element to it as well, and that easy, like I say, to approach. And so obviously, if you can approach a director about anything, to me personally, I will like that movie just a little bit more because I've understood the director a little bit more of why he's done a certain movie, or why he decided to tell a certain storyline and stuff like this. And a lot of it is for shock factor. Let's not beat around the bush with that. But a lot of it is storytelling to the best way possible, really. Like, yeah, I'm just really drawn to those kind of movies. Yeah.
Me too. Well said, for sure. That was a very, very broad question, but I always kind of ask anyone who's in that world, just why? Because I get that question a
Yeah.
lot. Um,
Yeah.
what
It
are
is a
some,
tricky question for sure. Yeah.
yeah, what are some of your favorite extreme films? Obviously, you mentioned Flowers. I know you're a huge fan of a Serbian film.
Yes.
What are some of your favorites and why? And which ones have affected you the most, like on an emotional level?
Um, I would say one of them in particular that keeps popping up whenever I get asked this question is Audition, because I can see the father figure in that in a lot of men in general. And you see, I like to connect the characters in a movie with like also real life situations as well, a bit like a Serbian film. Um, but Audition is probably another favorite of mine. Takashi Miike is probably one of my favorites he's ever done. Um, but yeah, so Audition is one of them because like I said, the father figure and the son, and he cares about his dad and everything like that, and it's the emotional level with that as well that gets to me as well, because I'm I would say I'm a little bit different in a lot of people in respect of when I watch these movies, I put myself in their position, in their shoes of like what they could be thinking and stuff like this. And I know it's just a movie and stuff, but I like to get emotionally involved with these movies as well. So that's another one. Um, I would also say, God, I've watched so many. Um, I would also say, hmm, my mind's going blank a little bit. Um, I would say August Underground as well. August Underground touches on a lot of stuff what again mainstream cinema wouldn't touch on. How it's like graphic and stuff like that, and I put my eyes in that woman, like how she's feeling and everything like that in the basement and everything like that. So that's another one. Also, Lucifer Valentine's um, Black Metal Veins. I love that movie. Just on again a more emotional, psychological sort of level. Like she's a drug addict and a partner's trying to help her and stuff like that. So that's another one. And I knew quite a few drug addicts in my time, and so I know how emotionally that affects people. So yeah, so they're just like a couple of them that I can think of right now that really have stuck in the back of my mind on emotional level.
Yeah, those are all amazing choices. I know recently I was listening to your podcast, and one of the few movies that was very hard to find, I think it was even hard to find when you recorded your episode on it, but Todd Solondz's Happiness,
Mm,
that one always gets me. Like, that's a
mm,
very viscerally
yes.
uncomfortable film.
Yeah.
And it's often not talked about in extreme circles, but it absolutely is. Like, that's
Yeah.
an example to me of one that always kind of, you very much put yourself in the position of those characters, and it's a
Yeah.
brutal, brutal movie, brutal dark comedy.
Yeah. Well, what got to me with that movie, well, a lot of stuff got to me about that movie, to be fair, when I watched it. Like the fact that the sister is like sort of going against the sister in a little bit, but trying to pally out at the same time, and like that really grinded my gears. But then that guy that went into the shop and got the child magazine and got in the back of his car, and he goes home with his wife with kids, and that kid that stayed over at the house. Oh, like I felt really uncomfortable watching that movie. And again, extreme cinema, it doesn't have to be just gore and over the top, like, I don't know what I'm allowed to say on this episode, but
Say
you can't
anything
just
you want. You can say anything you want.
you can't cut it out if you have to. But like and stuff like this. Also, I Spit on Your Grave. A lot of people wouldn't think that was extreme cinema, but to me, to a lot of people, it could be extreme due to scenes and stuff like this, or even Cannibal Holocaust. I recently introduced my partner to Cannibal Holocaust, and we were talking to another guy doing YouTube videos about that. But yeah, but Cannibal Holocaust is another one that touches on me as well. But yeah, but I went blank for a second there. But then when you brought happiness up, that just rekindled a few of the movies. But yeah, but happiness definitely, yeah, like that was a really uncomfortable watch for sure.
And I mean,
Yeah,
it's such a testament to its power that Criterion Collection put it out. I mean, I really nearly fell out of my chair when they announced they were going to release it on 4K. For years,
right.
for
Yeah.
years, I couldn't really get my hands on it, just on a terrible DVD copy if you could find it. But the fact that it's had this resurgence just as recently as last year is pretty amazing. Same with Gummo, of course. Criterion just releasing these bangers one after.
Yes, Gummo. Yes, Gummo. I remember that one. I remember watching that one. Yeah. One of the scenes in that movie is when he's in the bathtub and he's eating spaghetti out of this dirty bath water. That was just so uncomfortable.
I
It
mean,
made
it's
us
just
laugh though, but yeah.
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 Um, what do you think are some of like the most common misconceptions about extreme cinema? And what are some films that you think like are good jumping off points for audiences that want to venture into underground film?
Oh, so when people mention the word extreme cinema, they do think about the worst aspects of the movies. So, like, for example, everything like that, like whatever they want to call it. But like I said to you, I think what people need to do is have a bit more of an open mind when it comes to these movies and just watch them for what they actually are. Because a lot of people I tend to find watch certain reviews and everything like this and get a certain opinion on them before they even venture into these movies. And I definitely think, like I said before, that it's not for everyone. But there could be a lot of extreme cinema movies out there that could be for even the people that might not like the movies, you know. Um, but yeah, it's one of them things. I think some people will either love these movies or hate these movies. That's the way I think a lot of people see these movies. But the misconceptions of these movies is that these are just directors putting their art out there of a passion that they have and trying to tell a story, whether it might not seem like a story from the viewer that's watching it, but a director makes a movie for a reason and there's always a story behind what they're doing. And I definitely think if people give them the time of day, then they would thoroughly enjoy at least one of them that they come across. But like you say, misconceptions, like I say, whatever it is. But everybody's different though at the same time. So everyone has different levels to what they will go in and watch at the same time. So I think it is good to watch certain reviews about movies, but I wouldn't take them as fact though, because it's very diverse and everybody has their own opinion on these movies and stuff. You know, what I love, somebody else might absolutely hate. So it's all different for everyone, you know, but that's just my opinion on it. So I hope that's answered your question.
Oh, it absolutely did. So you've interviewed like so many filmmakers in the underground world, Jonathan Doe, White Gardenia, Scott Jurgens, just to name a few. What are some of the most surprising things you've found about crafting an underground film in your interviews with these directors and these artists?
um, well, from the outset, before I interviewed any of these people, I honestly thought, oh, they're going to be a certain way, or, you know, they're not going to entertain me because I'm just, you know, doing a podcast and stuff like this. But what I found out actually is that they are just like from my opinion, these are just directors trying to make it in the industry and trying to put their art out there. And they're actually genuinely really nice people, you know, especially Jimmy Screamer Claus. I found him absolutely hilarious when I interviewed him. And that was back in Tumblr days, basically. But I found it and put it on the new website that I'm doing. But yeah, like I find that they are not what you think they are, and especially when I was going to interview Lucifer Valentine, I'm still in the process of trying to get the interview, but he's a very private person. Which that's one thing I have noticed is they are kind of private people, but they will do anything to make a fan happy. Like that's what I've noticed about them. They are genuinely lovely people to talk to, and they will do an interview for you within 5 minutes if you wanted them to. So that's also why I love the movies as well, because I've getting to know the directors a little bit more. And so that adds to that. But yeah, but they are very surprising people when you actually get to talk to them and stuff, especially Stephen Byro. I find him very fascinating in what he's achieved, with the underground movies and stuff like that and unearthed films is absolutely amazing. So hats off to him for that. But yeah, but they are genuinely lovely people to talk to. Yeah.
You mentioned one of them. Are there any other like Grail interviews? Like, is there someone you really, really would like, living or dead, that you would love to get to and speak to about their art?
Oh,
You have your
I would say, unfortunately, I can't now, but David Lynch. I love David Lynch movies. I mean, Elephant Man was the first movie I saw. Oh my God, he's done so many. Blue Velvet. Eraserhead is another favorite movie of mine, even though it's not extreme cinema. But in general, he is one of my favorite directors that I could have interviewed, but unfortunately, I can't now. Um, but yeah, but Eraserhead was one of the other movies that I'd watched as well that really touched on me as well, actually. Just with the kind of person he was in general in the movie. But Elephant Man, I would say, is a classic, based off of a true story. And I didn't know that at the time when I watched it. But there is actually, this jogged my memory. There is another movie that I'm pretty sure I talked about that actually brought something up in me with like more of the care and emotional aspect. And it was like the circus, and I've got it on DVD. I bought it within the last few months. It was in a circus, and some of them were deformed. Um, you might know what movie this is.
Is this Freaks from 1932?
Yes,
Yes,
Freaks.
yes.
Yes, I bought that from HMV, and that's another one that actually touched me a little bit because what I didn't realize was these were real people, and they were in this movie. I thought it was effects of some sort.
Yes.
But then I watched a YouTube video and it was a documentary about these kind of people that all they could do back then was be in, the circus. That's how they made their money. And so I really delved deep with that one. But yeah, but going back to David Lynch, he's one of my favorites, but also Takashi Miike. I would love to interview Takashi Miike. I think he's amazing.
And he's done so many. I mean, he's done television, he's done films, he's done shorts. I mean, he's run the gamut of format basically. I don't know if he's made any web series or anything like super small, but he must have. I mean, he's also probably made dozens and dozens of films. Whereas David Lynch really stayed true to himself and only created a
Mm.
handful of films that are all beloved in their way. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking that he's no longer with us.
I know when I heard that news, I was really upset about it because, God, I've been a fan of David Lynch for years at this point, and like I say, I've admired the guy for his work and stuff like that. How he can do a movie Eraserhead with no speaking at all, but yet you can feel how the person's feeling on screen. And that's mastery right there. So, but yeah, but David Lynch and Takashi Miike are two of my favorite directors. Yeah.
Are there any mainstream releases, like real mainstream releases, that you feel kind of come close or flirt with the line of extremity? Because I can tell you, like, I recently rewatched The Devil's Rejects, which went to major theaters all around the world, thousands of theaters. And in rewatching it all these years later, I was struck by just how close it goes to being like truly extreme. And the reaction at the time was as such. The critics were totally divided. Are there any films that you've come across in your kind of watching history that you feel or you're like, wow, this actually really kind of cuts close to the line of being something that's too extreme for mainstream?
The first thing that's come into my mind, and this is totally my opinion, um, is I would say Saw X. me personally, I would say Saw X, because that is pretty gory to a certain level. And a lot of people probably think that's too extreme for cinema. Um, that's the only movie at the minute that's coming to my mind. It's really hard to think about all the other movies that I have seen that I would think is cutting the line to going into too extreme for mainstream. So I would say probably Saw X. Um,
I mean, that's definitely a great example. That whole franchise in general, especially
yeah,
from like 2003 maybe on, maybe a little bit earlier, there was a slew of films that I think kind of satiated an appetite for like gorehounds. Basically, you had Hostel, you had Saw, you had the Hills Have Eyes remake. These really visceral
yeah.
experiences that when you rewatch them now, you're like they seem like cheap remakes, honestly, compared to the 70s originals. At least some of them, but they strike you with just how violent they are. And yeah, it Saw is like one of the few franchises that still stuck around and still has a life and an audience. And I didn't see Saw X, but I have heard nothing but good things.
Oh, trust me, I went to cinemas to see it with my sister actually, and because she doesn't mind watching movies like this. And actually, there is a movie, Terrifier, the new Terrifier. I would say let's just jog my memory there. But the new Terrifier, I saw it in cinemas with my sister again, and I honestly thought myself, God, this is more gorier than the last one. And I love the Terrifier franchise, absolutely love it. Art the Clown, genius. Um, Even my partner, when he got introduced to it, he was just like, I kind of like his sense of humor a little bit, and he's quite funny on screen. I mean, it's probably a dark humor thing, but yeah, but I would say Terrifier, the last one as well. I think it's three or four. I think it was
I
three or
think they're
four.
gonna do four. There's three right now, but they're shooting four.
Or it would have been the third one then. But yeah, that was quite gory. So I would say that one as well.
And that there's a franchise as well that was like a surprise hit. The first one did respectable numbers, and then two and three, like, I mean, they did mainstream box office. What do you
Yeah.
think that set that sort of success, one, an independent film, and two, a borderline extreme film, that's financial success says about modern audiences? Like, do you think there's an appetite for this sort of material more than perhaps studio heads think of?
I think so. I think gory movies are becoming more liked by a lot of like a lot of movie fans in general. Not as big as say like action movies or romance movies. I mean, I'm definitely not into them, but I think it is becoming more and more now than what it used to be. I mean, if you remember, I mean, The Exorcist, when that was released, like in cinemas, people were fainting and everything. And look at the effects what we've got now compared to back then. So I think it is evolving as well. I think these movies are getting more and more bloodier as people like as time goes on. Just like a lot of like movies that portray real deaths and stuff. Faces of Death, for example. Now I'm not too sure if that's real footage or not. I haven't looked into that too much, but I have seen the movies. Um, but I think a lot more people are looking into these sort of movies and more of a shock value of, like, oh my God, like I can't look, but you need to look at the same time. So I think they are becoming a lot more, evolved with movies in general, than what it used to be. And the effects are getting better every single day. So yeah, so I think it is getting more. Yeah.
And it's all the better. I'm definitely here for it as far as like
Oh
it's
yeah.
I haven't seen the most recent Terrifier, but it's a delight that they are so financially successful. The fact
Yeah.
that something like this kind of very small franchise can come out of nowhere and become what it is. I mean, there's merchandise in any local chain store of Terrifier. Um,
Mhm.
that's a testament to independent artists who are out there just doing their thing, like you said, like they just want to tell their story and make, it's such an iconic character that was kind of born out of the sheer will to create independent films.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I
what?
think
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's also like when you say people that like say don't like horror movies or extreme cinema or anything like that, or even you haven't even heard of extreme cinema, I think, like I said, along with the shock value, I think because people see that as like, well, that's not normal. Like what you're saying on there is not normal. Like, I mean, I've had people coming to me on my YouTube and saying like, "Oh, you must have had child trauma if you like a Serbian film," and I think that's also another misconception as well, alongside what I was just mentioning, the shock value of it, of like that's not normal. But no, I've never had. It doesn't say because we like these movies that we've had child trauma or, we're crazy in the head or anything like that. It's just because it's for certain kind of people, but not batshit crazy people. You know what I mean? But yeah, but yeah, I just wanted to put that in there.
No,
Um,
that's a great point, and I always sort of describe it to people that I just have a proclivity for films that kind of confront you and get in your face. I mean, good art should not be comfortable. There's a place to be satiated by art. Like there's, put on, like I know you said you hate romantic comedies. I'm not a fan myself, but there's a place for that. I can see why
yeah,
someone
exactly. Yeah.
would enjoy that. I grew up watching, mainstream horror, but then gravitated toward the fringes of that. And I just sort of enjoy films that kind of get right here and show you something that you don't see every day in major films, and does
Yeah.
it well. It's not just, of course, there's folks like, the great Sam Hell who, creates a certain kind of like gore that meets erotica. That's certainly not for everybody, even people who enjoy mainstream or extreme cinema.
Mhm.
Um, but there's all different shades and there's
Yeah.
tiers of different extreme cinema that I'm sure you can attest to.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I recently
Definitely.
listened to your episode on Sallow, and like that is a prestige film that is often talked about in extreme circles, and it is extreme, and it is disturbing and confrontational, but it's also elegantly made, and there's a remove
Mhm.
from it, and Pasolini did such a beautiful job with creating it, which is
Yeah.
a testament to his directing that it's an unadaptable novel. If you've ever read the novel, it's I don't know how he made sense of it on screen, but he did. Um, and I thought
Yeah.
you put it in such great perspective about just the history of it being made and how it basically led to Pasolini's death.
Mhm.
Anyway, that was a long tangent, but the point is I enjoy films that get in your face, and it's what you're reading your podcast is. There's very few people talking about these films.
Yeah, with you saying that as well, another point I want to make about that is it's making you face your fears in a way. It's like I say, it's so different for everyone why they watch these movies, why they love these movies. But I think it does put you in your uncomfortable zone. Like it does make you uncomfortable. And like you say, like if you don't feel uncomfortable or you don't feel distressed from it or anything like that, then they haven't done their job, you know. So like I say, there's always a story behind these movies. And if they can get you just that little bit, a bit like that movie Happiness, that really got to me. And the director did a damn good job for doing that, you know. You didn't see anything, but it put that thought in your head. And that's a bit like a Serbian film. You don't actually see scene, but in your head, it's happened, you know.
Right.
So the director does a fantastic job with things like that. If they can make you think, then they've done their job at the end of the day. Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure you are looking forward to it just as much as I am. But with a Serbian film, I can't wait for that documentary to come out from Steven.
Oh,
I've heard so much about it, and I just would love to know like just what happened on that set, how that movie came to be, because it's so well made. And
yeah.
it's often dismissed, but it's you expect this like gritty, no budget movie, and it's gorgeously shot. It's so well acted. And as far as I can tell, that director's never done anything else again.
No, well, I mean, I'm not really surprised that he hasn't because it is such a successful movie in my eyes. And I think even in years to come, it'll just become more and more successful. Because I think there was a time where if you mentioned extreme cinema, the first movie that anybody spoke about was a Serbian film. That's the first thing I heard about. And so that's what intrigued us. And now I absolutely love the movie. And I introduced it to my partner. Now, bearing in mind, he hasn't watched any of these movies before, but he watched it and he thoroughly enjoyed it. So if he can enjoy it, I'm pretty sure a lot of other people can as well. but it does make you uncomfortable certain scenes in it. But the director did the job, and that movie, like you say, was absolutely fantastically shot. The music, the acting was on point. Like that's why I love the movie so much, and it's relatable as well in a way. So yeah,
And at least for in my own experience, that's probably the most cut or edited film in modern history, at least since Cannibal
yeah,
Holocaust.
yeah,
It was years until Unearthed Films finally stepped up and said, "Here's the uncut version." Um, you can only really get that film chopped up. I think the UK version was chopped up by minutes, by long stretches of time. And it wasn't until many years later I finally saw the uncut version. And it's only a more effective film. Um, and it's an interesting, almost puritanical response to that film that it was so heavily censored.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like I say, I love, I love that movie. Everybody that's listened to my podcast probably knows I love that movie. And like you say, the documentary, I can't wait for the documentary either. And I would love to also be able to talk to people about this documentary as well. Maybe it's like you in the future after it's like released, we can talk about it and stuff and bounce opinions off each other and everything like that. So but yeah, but absolutely love that movie. And it will be for another 20 years down the line. So
Definitely. No one's gonna forget it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's unforgettable, like what you say.
As a wrap up, what does the future hold for Too Extreme for Mainstream, the podcast, your channel? I know you just launched a new website, and what can your fans look forward to from you in the future?
So I do want to progress with the podcast. I want to be able to do sit down face-to-face interviews with directors potentially in the future. I want to do more stuff for YouTube. So whatever I decide to do with YouTube, but obviously I would do want to focus on more podcasts, more interviews and stuff like that. And the website, I just want to build a community on my website where like-minded fans can come along and join in on the conversation and stuff like that. So it is set out a bit like Facebook, but it's a different website. So people can come on and go there for the latest news and everything like that. So I am working very hard on the website. So yeah, I just want that to be the go-to place for like-minded fans like yourself and communicate with each other, and also for the fans to talk with directors as well. That's what I want to do, make it a whole community. But yeah, just get better and better at what I'm doing basically, and I will progress forward as
Well,
much as I can. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I know your fans are, and I'll link down all of your content in the description. And Sensory, thank you so much for taking the time tonight. I know it's late over there in the UK.
No, it's fine, not a problem. I'm always open for a chat. Absolutely. But yeah, but I will link all your social media on my pages as well and on my website as well. So
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and you have a lovely night.
no problem. Thank you so much.